As U.S. troops continue to pull out of Afghanistan, more journalists are apparently going into hiding. To discuss this in more detail is our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari, joining us once again from Los Angeles. Lisa, the Taliban is spreading its wings, which is impacting many areas of Afghanistan, including one region where a local radio station shut its doors.
Yes, this is, each day we hear more and more stories about women and journalists and all sorts of different groups that are going to be affected. Well, let me tell you the bottom line. Everyone will be affected because the Taliban is ready to swoop in. What do I mean by even swoop in? They're there already, right? They have been there already. This will just make them more comfortable to spread out and to make themselves at home. Um, we knew this was coming, and it hasn't even been a formal, evacuation of U.S. troops and other foreign troops yet. But we've already seen the effects. We've already seen the Taliban get comfortable, come in for raids, steal laptops, steal all the furniture that the U.S. left behind from one air base that it emptied out. But we knew this was coming. It's going to be for any freedom loving individual, whether it's a journalist, it's a radio station, women, children, schools, they're all going to be affected. So we'll see what the next chapter holds for the people of Afghanistan.
So, Lisa, even though the U.S. military is pulling out of Afghanistan by the end of August, the military is still offering more air support to Afghan forces in their fight against the Taliban. Tell me more about that.
Right. So the date to pull out of Afghanistan is it's a single day on the calendar, but the reality on the ground is it paints a very different picture. It's not something where the U.S. can, let its hair down and walk out and say we've done our job here. We're leaving it in a situation that is much worse than we found it, perhaps, and in a situation where the turmoil, it doesn't seem like there's going to be any stability there anytime soon. So for that reason, they've decided to provide some support to the Afghan people and government and to offer airstrikes on the Taliban and see if they can at least try to diminish the threat or diminish the size. But this is like playing whack-a-mole. If you're trying to get them now, they're going to sprout up like weeds much, much more, and they're going to continue doing so. They've been waiting for this moment. So it's something they've been preparing for, and something like this is not going to deter them, unfortunately, although it's a nice symbolic gesture.
Now, Lisa, in light of the transition Afghanistan is going through, the Afghan government is imposing a month-long curfew across almost the entire country in a bid to stop the Taliban from invading cities. How will that curfew actually help?
Yeah, it's interesting. So what the Afghan government realized is that they are expanding and moving across, like you mentioned, Hal, in your initial question, very, very quickly. They are just trying to sprawl out as fast as they can to develop their network all across the country in all different areas. So by imposing this curfew, they think that they can stop or arrest or at least confront some of the Taliban members, maybe deter them from moving so quickly, just to slow the progress somewhat. Look, the people of Afghanistan are willing to do whatever it takes. So if it's a curfew, if it's a month-long curfew, a 2-month-long curfew, they're coming right out of COVID. It's something that the people are willing to tolerate in order to, again, minimize or diminish this threat of a terror organization taking over their entire country.
And what a lot of us here are concerned about in the West is all of the terror cells which will be forming and growing in Afghanistan as the Taliban takes over and the U.S. troops pull out.
Yes, absolutely. And that's exactly what has been going on. While the US was there, along with other Western allies, the Taliban felt comfortable to do what it did, meaning they were at the negotiating table with the US, they were at the negotiating table with at the UN with the Afghan people. Whenever there was an opportunity to have a formal diplomatic, conversation, they were there. But at the same time, they would go back and launch another suicide attack the next day. So it was, business as usual for them. But at the same time, they tried to maintain this facade of a formal government group. And that's exactly what they were preparing for, to say, we're the only game in town. If you want to talk about the future of Afghanistan, you can't eliminate us from the conversation. And for that reason, the US did include them in ceasefire talks and in talks about the future of the country. The US was hoping that, look, maybe they are, the only game in town. Maybe they are the best organized group. Maybe they do understand the people of Afghanistan, which is not true. And now that we see what they're really about, obviously, they're a terror organization, and they've shown their true colors, and they have shown not to be worthy of this trust and responsibility that the West has wanted or hoped that they could impart on them. And the calculation for the West is, if we can't get rid of them, let's see if we can work with them. And for that reason, now that the US is pulling out formally and the statement has been made, they know that it's free play for them. So they're going to go and do what they've always been doing, but do it much more freely.
Lisa, the Biden administration has indicated it will withdraw combat troops from Iraq, but it doesn't have combat troops there. In fact, pro-Iran militias say they believe the U.S. government is being misleading.
Hmm. Iran calling out the United States? Never. Yeah, this is yet another proxy war that the Iranian regime is involved in. And the reason why I say another is because people don't really draw or connect the dots here, understanding what the Iranian regime is capable of doing, what they have been doing for decades in the Middle East, and more recently this past decade, where they are supporting the Houthis in Yemen, they're supporting Hezbollah in Lebanon, they're supporting Hamas in Gaza, they're supporting insurgencies in Iraq, they're supporting insurgencies obviously in Syria and propping up Bashar al-Assad's regime there, and the list goes on. And this is in addition to supporting the one off suicide bombers around the world. They are the number one state sponsor of terror. And they are hovering over Iraq, and they did so when the US pulled out of Iraq. And now, if we have assets there that are, dwindling, they threaten us about those too. I mean, every other day you hear about US bases or US assets being threatened by the Iranian regime, a retaliatory hit on the pro Iran militias there by the US, a proxy war by all means. And you'll remember that the United States had a few big strikes against the Iranian regime in Iraq. Qasem Soleimani being one of them, al Baghdadi being another, for the Iraqis and for terror altogether, but if for ISIS rather. But I think that it's a place where the U.S. has done a lot of its symbolic hits against the Iranian regime before getting involved, obviously, into a full-fledged war. At the same time, we want to juxtapose the fact that the U.S. is sitting at the negotiating table with the Iranian regime, hoping to strike a nuclear deal, hoping to normalize relations. And we don't talk about these other confrontations between the U.S. and the Iranian regime, but they're focused on getting that deal. So we hope that the Biden administration sees all of this. We hope that they see what's going on in Iran by the Iranian regime and what they're doing, more importantly, around the world and in the Middle East.
Israeli strikes have reportedly killed a Hezbollah military commander and an Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps senior official. Lisa, the military commander was allegedly killed in western Syria, and the Lebanese terrorist group confirmed his death.
Yes, it was a huge hit. And this yet another proxy war, right? I don't know if people have been following the fact that Israel has had very targeted, and I repeat, very targeted strikes in Syria on weapons depots, on assets that are pro-Iranian or pro-Iranian regime, I should say, there. And as I said, Iran has a very important presence in Syria. They are propping up the Bashar al-Assad regime there, so they are, they've fortified their bases there. And Israel does what it needs to, meaning it goes in with pinpointed targets to take out these weapons depots. Why? Because they know that they're pointed at Israel. And in doing so, in one of these targeted attacks, they were able to get a Hezbollah commander. And this attack was confirmed, as you said, and a huge win and gain for the Israelis, and a huge gain for people who are anti-terror. So it's a day to celebrate that.
Now, closer to home, California's largest fire continues to burn homes. The massive Dixie Fire, which began on July 14th, has already leveled at least a dozen homes, Lisa. Fire officials say the blaze had charged close to 772 square kilometers of timber and brush in Plumas and Butte counties, and it's only around 21% contained.
Yes, this is, this is fire season for us here in California. Today, actually, we had rain, which was, it's not seasonal to have rain in the summer here, so it was nice to hopefully that benefited the people fighting the fires over there, and we just hope that they can contain this faster than it has been because obviously it's in a residential area. This is in Northern California, but we do have fires here in Southern California as well. The fire that you speak of in Northern California over the weekend, a smaller fire and a more massive one kind of united, they merged. That's why you're seeing that, that big chaotic fire that's only 21%. That's why I guess the percentage of containment, I should say, went down because they weren't able to get this in time before it merged. But we are thinking about all the firefighters out there. We hope that the weather stays cooler so that it does not get worse and so that they're able to put this out sooner rather than later.
We've had a lot of the wildfire smoke make its way here to southern Alberta from British Columbia, the fires in Oregon, and of course, some of the fires you talked about in California. How's the air quality index where you are?
It's not too bad actually, and as I said again, because of the rain today, I think we're going to have even clearer skies tomorrow. Look, smog is a way of life here, so it's not anything new. But the fires, and when we have fire season, there are days where we are warned not to leave home. And the past few years have been that bad, but we're not there right now. We still have blue skies when it's not raining. We have blue skies, and yeah, we're not seeing the smoke. Although if there is a small fire here or there, which we have had in the past few weeks, you do see the smoke, but it's usually for about 24 hours.
Lisa, more than 112 people have died in a western state in India following torrential monsoon rains, causing massive landslides and flooding in low-lying areas, impacting hundreds upon hundreds of villages.
Yes, India can't catch a break here. This is awful. Actually, for natural disasters, we had a section on our morning bulletin this morning with half a dozen natural disasters around the world, from flooding to monsoons and other things. And India, this is an awful story because you have so many casualties, and that's partially because of the lack of proper infrastructure in these areas. And as it's already such a hard hit area with COVID and, just proper care, proper evacuation strategies, proper hospitalization and other health equipment and things like that. So we're thinking of them and hoping that this lets up soon.
Lisa, I was watching a recent report on Fox News talking about how, a lot of the mainstream media in the United States is discussing defunding the police and the benefits of such. But in Detroit, Michigan, a recent poll said around 80% of people want to see more police being hired and increasing the budget to police in Michigan.
Yeah, I've seen so many of these reports and so many stories that would support the report that you speak of, meaning people are completely regretful about the defund the police movement here in the United States. I mean, in all major cities, you're seeing crime up 300, 400, 500%. Areas that have been safe to walk during the day, to just, people, children and dogs walking. There are actual armed robberies here in Los Angeles. I know in New York City, a lot of friends tell me it's the same way. And of course, inner cities like Chicago and Detroit are facing the same thing. So it's not surprising that when you see these crazy ideologies, when people just spew some garbage about, yes, defund the police, they're awful, they kill innocent people, then when they see it in action and in practice, how it is just destroying our societies. It is making everything so chaotic. And add to that the fact that they allow people to steal under $1,000. You can just walk into any place and steal whatever you want. It's a jungle. So we're promoting anarchy. We're promoting this chaos. And I'm glad this poll came up. But what's this poll going to do? They've hired community organizers and such. People that aren't trained to do anything but receive a paycheck in lieu of this money that's going to police officers and to police stations. And they'll have to reverse this. It's not going to be easy, but they'll have to reverse it because our cities are demanding that we do so immediately.
Our foreign affairs expert and political reporter, Lisa Daftari, thanks again for joining us from your LA, Los Angeles.
My pleasure. Thank you.